Enjoy your class.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for the beautiful intro. Let me share my screen to give you an idea of how far you've come in just 2 nights of learning programming with Python, especially games programming, not just learning programming. Confirm that you can see my ugly screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All
No,
right.
you can see it, but it's not ugly.
All right. So on Monday this week, we started talking about games programming using Python, and we're discussing the fundamentals. This is supposed to be a profile of what we need to be able to do by the time we say we're done learning programming. You need to know a lot about game screens. We need to know how to set caption for our games. We need to know how to set screen colors, screen icon, screen background, how to put sound effects, how to end games, how to create shapes, how to move shapes around. We need to know how to flip shapes, more like you flip it, laterally or, vertically, as the case may be. We need to know how to rotate shapes, how to scale shapes if you want to increase the shape or you need to reduce the size. The same thing goes for resizing shapes. We need to know how to add custom text like game is over before the program ends, or start the game now, something that is written on top of the game screen. We need to learn how to produce menus, how to create enemies if you are designing games where 2 or 3 people are playing one another. You need to know how to animate your own object and the enemy's object. You need to know how to detect collision and then keep scores if your game is about that. Those are the things that we're supposed to know. Of course, this is the flow of games. We set up games. Of course, we look at all of the events that are there. Sometimes you may start a game and you are not interested because it looks boring. You quickly exit and then you close the game. But if you're interested in playing the game, then you play it. All of the elements will be updated, surface will be drawn, and then we will see the elements on the surface. And then the game keeps going on and on till you end it, saying you are not interested again. So what exactly have we done up to now? I'll say we've covered a lot, surprisingly, in one night. We have been able to produce game screen. We've been able to learn how to set screen caption. We've been able to learn how to set screen colors using the RGB convention. We've learned how to set screen background when you have your own image. We've learned how to put sound effects and how to handle game exit. But tonight, I'm going to do a quick revision of all of those elements with you. And then I'll show us how we can add screen icon. Remember yesterday, I downloaded Incredible Orc into the folder of my own project. You can download any icon that you like. And then I'll show us also how to create some basic shapes. And then all things being equal, by tomorrow, we'll start learning. We'll start learning how to move those shapes around. And that's where your energy is going to get, to that topmost level. So in our previous class, I discussed with us how to install Pygame, and I put up a video on YouTube. Once you have the most recent version of Python installed on your computer, the next thing for you is to go to the terminal of your IDE, whether it's PyCharm or VS Code. It's immaterial. It's the same command in all of the platforms. You issue this command, pip install Pygame, and then it will download Pygame on your computer and then get it installed automatically, which means that your laptop is ready for games programming using Pygame. That's the first thing you do. If you run into issues with that, I expect you to reach out to me after class and I'll help you out as I've done with a few other people. So step one, sorted. Then when you go into your, code editor, you create a new file, give it a name that you like, and you need to put these lines there. The first line there, import Pygame, is telling your Python environment to load the intelligence of Pygame into its memory because you need it now. Then you initialize the game engine with this line 4, pygame.init. Then you open and close the parentheses. So that tells the game engine that you are ready to start this, writing games. Then we talk about setting up the screen. The screen is going to have height and width. So you can set the dimension to what suits you. Typically, what I tell people to do is start your game concept from a plain sheet of paper. Sketch the game idea on paper. That gives you an idea of how tall your screen should be, how wide your screen should be, rather than you get to the computer and then you start thinking there. Do all your thinking when you are designing on paper. Where are the objects going to be? What are the types of objects that you need? What is the general storyline behind the game? It makes it easier for you to code that way than you just come to the keyboard and start coding. So coding is really not about coming to the keyboard to start writing codes. It's more of careful thinking before you get to the keyboard. So the idea is for you to know how tall or wide your screen is going to be. And then you create the screen with this line 18. I'm going to give you the video. Of course, you know where to pick it. So if you need some of these codes, you have access to them. You'll be in the position to pause the recording and then take notes. So don't write anything now. Rather, I suggest you watch because you have access to the video afterwards. So once you write line 18, your screen is defined, but you can't see it yet because it will come up and then it disappears almost immediately. But you'll soon see how you can, freeze it and then make it stable on your own display. Now, what are the other things that we learned how to do yesterday? Indicating the caption for your game is very important. Rather than going with the default caption that Pygame gives us, we're in the position to change the caption. If you have a name for your game, that is the opportunity given to you here to insert the game name. So here, line 21 is saying, help me set the caption of my game to our first Python game. You can change yours to whatever suits you. This is the command that you need for that. In addition to this, we went as far as discussing how to set screen color. If you are the, color fanciful type. So the line is line 21, just say screen.fill, and then you put the name of the color. But you must have defined that name somewhere. So in this case, I defined my font color to mean 247 components of red, 97 units of green, and 240 units of blue. When I mix those together, it gave me something pinkish. You can use standard colors like this if you understand the RGB concept, or you type the color name in quotes here if you want traditional colors, and then your screen will take that effect when certain lines are executed. If you are not interested in using colors for your background, but you have some pictures that you want to load into the image background, you can put the pictures in the program directory, and then you write something like this. The background, that's BG, is equal to pygame.image.load. Please give me a second. All right, I'm back. So if you have an image in your project folder, you can load it using this command, and it's going to, there's another line that you need to add later to complement this. That's where you set the coordinate where the image starts loading from. I'm going to show you that, and then you are able to achieve changing the background of your screen to the image that you have indicated. We went through this yesterday. And then I think Amira suggested that, oh, how do we add sound to our games? That led us to these two lines that we added, line 30 and line 31. So you need to write a command like this, which says, I need a sound. And I need this sound to come from my mixer engine, which is going to play this file, music.wav. You may have your own audio in an MP3, MP4 format. It depends. Just make sure you have that sound file somewhere. Then you can keep it in the same directory as your code. And that allows you to write this line 30. And then line 31 is where you say sound.play. And then it plays that sound for you as we saw yesterday. But then all of those things will not materialize into anything until you get into the game loop. This is probably the most important part of your game design. This is where everything is being blended together. The ingredients are what you have outside the game loop. The real blending is being done here. So we started by defining a variable called is game running. We want to check if our game is running or not. And is game running is a Boolean variable, and that means it takes true or false value. If it is true, then it means the game is running. If it is false, it means the game is not running at that point in time. So we started by, okay, we want the game to be played, so let it be running. So while is game running, meaning while the game is running, we want to check certain events. And that's where we have this for loop in line 38. So the for loop is checking several events, because when you're playing game, some people will press different keys. What should your Pygame do when certain keys are pressed? So we went in and said, the first event we want to check is when the user says, I am not playing the game anymore, by clicking that top X symbol on the window. We always find it around here. So what should the program do? We want the program to end by setting its game running to false. So how do you check if someone has pressed that X symbol in the top right corner of your window? You write line 40 within the for loop. So this is if event type is pygame.quit, meaning the user wants to quit. Then you say your variable is game running is set to false. And then you come down to line 50 here and terminate the program by writing pygame.quit. Sometimes some users will put this line 50 immediately under is game running is equal to false. It also works, but it depends on where you find it more convenient. I prefer to have it at the end of the entire code. It should be the last thing you write. Now, line 44 here is the one that makes the background image that you have loaded show on your screen. If you don't have line 44 there, and you only loaded the image like you have done here, the image will not be displayed when your game starts running. So that line 44 is very important. Even as important as line 44 is, if you don't have line 47, the game will still not show the image that you have loaded. So you need to be very mindful of some of these, lines. Now, one other thing I need to call your attention to in this game loop is on line 44. When we loaded the background, we put the destination 0, 0. A lot of people will be wondering, what does this mean? You will see it shortly when I get into the layout of the game screen. That is saying start from position X is equal to 0 and Y is equal to 0. So if I can give you an analogy of that, that is the top left corner of the screen. That is where X is 0 and Y is 0. Remember yesterday I said your knowledge of geometry will be needed in this situation. In secondary school mathematics, for those who are not in secondary school, if you have anyone, when we draw graphs, we always say anything on the horizontal level, like this, is our x-axis, and anything on the vertical axis, like this, is our y-axis. So when we define a point on a plane, we would define it using its x and y values. In mathematics, they call it coordinates. So this is a coordinate of a point, 0, 0. The first 0 there is the x value, and the second 0 there is the y value. So look at your graph sheet and then load that into your mind. We will need that intelligence, in placing objects on the screen. Otherwise, there'll be confusion. So at the end of the day, last night, we were able to produce a screen like this when we were able to set the background color. This was the color that we mixed, and it gave us a plain background. And when Amira asked us to jazz things up, we were able to get the background color replaced with a background image. And then we even added music to it. And I guess we ended the class there. So for tonight, before I move on, let me check messages that people have put in the chat box for me. I hope someone is helping me out. Yes, thanks a lot. Get it on YouTube. Just search for me. There are so many Ibrahim Hamed that you most likely will find in there. Recording for yesterday's class, I'm going to upload it, Ridwan. Just give me some moments. Okay, I think that's it. For those who are asking, can we program a cooking game? Yes, why not? We can all think through it and then see what the idea will be. But the ultimate goal is for me to give you the ingredients and the process. Then the idea is going to be yours. You can think of whatever you want to program, and then we'll see how it works. I will show you one or two standard programs that are on my computer here, and that should be able to inspire you when you are thinking of your own idea. So let's come back into the session proper. I was talking about coordinates just on the previous slide, and this slide, I never knew it's going to even be my next slide. This slide talks a lot about the layout of your screen. You must memorize this and then master it, not just memorizing for memorization's sake. You need to master it because you will run into issues if you struggle with the layout of the screen. So let's start from the left-hand side. I spoke about x-axis being the horizontal axis and y-axis being the vertical axis. So if you say 0, 0.0, as you see on this right-hand picture, it's referring to this top left corner. The extreme top left corner is coordinates, is a point defined by 0, 0, because that is the point where x is 0 and y is 0. But if you move on the same line here, and you are moving to the right, like this, x is increasing, but y still remains 0. So the midpoint here, if your screen has been set to a width of 400, the midpoint here will be 200, 0, because at that point, x is now 200, but your y is still 0. That's the midpoint under letter A, I think. So as you move closer to the edge, X is moving close to the width of the screen that you have defined, but Y is still 0 on that first line. If your movement were to be on this vertical line and you are moving downward at the edge, X at that point remains 0, but the value of Y is increasing and it is moving close to the height of the screen that you have defined. When it gets to the height, you can decide on what you want the game to do. Maybe your object should disappear and then reappear from the top, or it hits the edge. It knows that I have hit the edge and it bounces back into the main game area. It's up to you to make that decision, but I will show you how to check whether you got to this edge or not. Or if you are going to the right, I'll also show you how to detect whether you got to the extreme end on the right, or if you have got to the extreme end on the left. Same thing if you are going up. If you hit this roof here, I'll show you how to detect that I'm already there. Maybe I should keep going out of the game screen, or I should be bounced back into the arena of the game. You need to understand this. So one of the things you also need to take note of is you need to understand the size of the object that you are putting on the screen, because it's not just about the dimension of the playing surface alone. You need to equally factor in the size of the object. For instance, if this object starts going up and I want to check when it gets to this top here, I need to be careful, because if it is going up and it gets there and I want something else to go and hit it, okay, I cannot just say, oh, go to the edge here and hit something there. No, I will have to say, if this object has moved to this place, before you can hit it, you must have moved up to, let's say, I go back to my marker now. I haven't used it in a long while. Okay, so if the object has reached this point, let's say this is my box, you cannot go and hit this box by checking for the height of the screen. Rather, you check for the height of the screen less the height of the object, because that object is now there. So you can only run into it if you are moving in the same direction when you have covered this distance, not when you have covered this distance. So you need to have that understanding as well. And the same thing applies if you're coming from any direction. It doesn't have to be, going up or going down. You may be chasing it this way. You must know when you come into collision with that object. So this knowledge is very, very important. And the most fundamental thing is know that your screen starts from position 0, 0, which is here. It's very important. And then this is the width of the screen. This is the height of the screen. And the height increases this way. When you move up, the height is reducing. When you move to the right, the width is increasing. When you move to the left, the width is reducing, because you are coming back towards 0. It's here. So this is 0, 0. And then this is going to be maybe 400, 0, because Y is still 0 at that point. And if this height is like, say, another 400, because it looks like a square to me, then this place will be 0, 400, because X is 0 at that point, Y is at the maximum. The midpoint here, which is the center of your screen, will be 200, then 200. And people may be wondering, why is it 200, 200? It means you have moved 200 space to the right. That's the first value of X there. And then you have moved 200 spaces downward. And that will give you the coordinate of that center point. That's how I got 200, 200. I've moved 200 pixel to the right, 200 pixel to the lower side, then I will get to the center of the screen. So you must understand where you are placing things. And this place is going to be 400, 400, because X is maximum here and Y is also maximum there. You need to have full mastery of this. Otherwise, you will run into issues, and that's not going to be good enough for you. Now, having said this, let me move on with my demo or with my explanation. So, in fact, we are going into demo. Today, I'll start my demo with changing the icon of our game to Incredible Orc. That was something I downloaded yesterday. I will just show you how to do it. But for those who are interested in the code, it's a 2-line command. You need to first load the image into a variable called icon. Okay. And then you put the icon in the next line, which is pygame.display.set icon. For advanced users, they can write everything in a single line. They will just embed the first line into the second one. But at our level, we'll keep it as simple as this. Know your icon, download it into the directory of the project, and then use line 24 to load that image into your icon. And then line 25 will bring the icon onto the game console for us to see. I have already done that. I will just cut to that screen and show you what it looks like. Give me a second. Just hold on. All right. I hope you can still see my screen, or you can't again.
We can.
All right. So what are you seeing on my screen now?
The code.
Okay. So if you are seeing the code, thanks a lot. So let me go up here and show you where I set the icon. You already have this game template. So if you run this game now, oh, I've put some things. I don't want you to see this yet. Let's go block those guys. Okay. We will get there, but not now. All right. So if we run this code, this is our game. It's a blue screen. They don't like blue. All right. So let me go back and change it to what is on the slide. And that means I'll bring in my funny game of my funny color. So I'll come back into where I have navy and call it funny color. Okay. So if I run this again, yes, this is our funny color. And you'll see the default icon is up there. But I already downloaded Orc into my game. If you scroll down, you'll see this is the picture of Incredible Orc. Oh, so this is what I want to use. The file is orc.png. And then I went into my line 24 and line 25. I am removing the comments. So I used line 24 to load that image of orc into a variable called icon. Then I used line 25 to display the icon using pygame.display.set_icon, and I passed that variable into this. So if I run this code again, you can see that my orc icon has replaced what used to be there. You need to, practice this and be able to change the icon of your game. So there is nothing saying you can't change the icon. You don't have to use the official icon that came with the game. Amira will talk later. How I have installed, I am so happy. Oh, Missy, I'm so happy for you too. You can tell them how you did it. Okay. So this is the way to change the icon on your game. Okay, so I come back to this screen. After changing game icon, what else can we do? We want to start adding shapes to our surface now. Instead of just having a plain surface like this one. What's so special about this surface? Nothing. So we want to be able to remove, cobwebs in our mind and start placing objects on this, surface. One of the objects that you need to learn how to draw on your screen is a line. I can drag a line from here. Sorry, go back. I can pick my pointer. No, I need a pen. Yes, give me a pen. All right. I can say I want my line to start from here, and I'm drawing it in that direction. Don't mind my shaking hands. So you must know the coordinate of this point where you are starting, and you must know the coordinate of this point where you are ending the line. So this one is going to be x1, comma, y1. That's the starting point. And then this is going to be x2, comma, y2. That's the ending point. But if you look at x1 here, it's going to be, if you read from 0, we said this is 0, you move up to this point and you trace it down. That's your value of x. Okay, so whatever is here is your value of x. So if this is a screen that is 80 pixel wide, then this is like 1/4 of it. So that will give you like 20 for x. And when you want to get the y1 value, you are starting from 0, you are counting downward. So if this is 100, okay, then this point is going to be around 60, in my opinion. So your y1 will be 60. So that point is going to be point 20, 60. And you can do the same for x2 and y2. So once you know where your line starts and where it ends, one other thing you need to know will be the thickness of the line. How thick do you want it to be? Once you know the thickness, it can be 1. That's like the minimum. And it can be greater than or equal to 1. So if you understand this, the remaining bit will be pretty easy for you. You just go ahead and write a line like this. So look at what I have done on this screen. I have defined a function and I call it add line. You can say create line. You can say insert line. It depends on you and what you like. So the syntax that I need you to be familiar with is this syntax here, pygame.draw.line. That's the construct, pygame.draw.line. So on which surface are you drawing the line? We are drawing it on the screen that we have produced. That's why screen is here. So you here in the syntax, you see surface and you didn't see surface here because this screen represents the surface on which we are drawing the line. Then it's asking me, color is the next thing that you need to supply. I have put navy as my color. You can choose whichever color you like in your own case. Then start position. You see the variable here is start underscore POS. So I said start from the top left corner. That's why I put 0, 0. If you don't want that start position, indicate your own desired start position. Then where will the line end? We need to know the end point. So that's the end position here. I am passing it like a list also. And I said, move 250 pixel on the x-axis, move 180 pixel down on the y-axis. That is where I want this line to be. and the thickness should be 1. When you write this and you run your code, you won't see the line. You won't see the line because there is a need to execute this function add line. So if you go into your game loop, before you get to pygame.display.update, this is where I am calling the line. Let me go back to my pointer. So this is where I am calling that function here in line 53. And what I'm saying there is I need you to execute that function called add line. And when you do that in your Pygame environment, you will see a very simple result, which will draw a line for you. And that line will start from this corner here, and it will go diagonally down and end somewhere midway here. I forgot to put the screenshot of the line, but it is possible. And I can also demonstrate that to you because I still have the code. So give me a moment. If I go in here and I say in the lower part here, I can say add line. I already have the line function drawn. This is it here. I'm saying start from 0, 0, end at 250, 180. When I run this, you will see the blue line starts from the top left corner and it goes all the way. It counts 250 on the x-axis and it counts 180 pixel down, and that's the finishing line for it. That's the easiest way to draw a line on your screen if you need one. Now, I'll go back to my presentation screen and we will talk about not just line now, but something more exciting. How about if you want to add a square onto your surface? It can be one, it can be many, but let's even start from one. How do you add a square onto your surface? The syntax is this. It's still going to be pygame.draw. Sorry, this is not going to be dot line. It's going to be dot rect for you. Just one moment. Keep this. I need to check what I have here. Yes, it's going to be dot rect. So the slide is wrong. Let me quickly fix that. For this, it's RECT because people may be watching. We need to tell them what's correct and not misinform them. All right, good. I saw that and I realized that that construct is not correct. So we are trying to draw a form of a rectangle, even though we are in the position to indicate the dimension. So don't say it like, why is it showing dot rect and not dot square? Python will define it as a rectangle, but square now has all the sides being equal. A classical rectangle will have the length being longer than the width. So this is the simplest syntax for it. You tell us the surface where you want to draw your square. You tell us the color. This color behaves in a very weird way. I'll show you in a jiffy. And then you define the dimension. And then you tell us the width. Now, most times, if you indicate a width that is greater than 1, then it will give you an empty, square. And the thickness is going to be the thickness of the border. That's what is meant by the width here, the thickness of the border line, that line that you are drawing around. But if you keep it as 1, then the color that you have chosen here will be used in filling the shape that you have produced. I'm going to give you examples of it. In fact, I have like 4 examples for square, the simple one and the fanciful ones. Now, if you want something more fanciful than just drawing a line on the screen, then you can go to this second syntax, which looks intimidating at first, but it's very simple. I'll show you how simple it is in a moment. Let me get my marker. This is going to be your typical rectangle, but your typical square. Yeah, this is my square. and you expect sharp edges on the four corners. So let's say you have indicated this width to be 2 instead of 1. What you will see is that your line will be thicker than normal. It will be thicker than normal, but this is going to be white. Okay, this will be white. And then this will be the color that you have chosen if width is greater than 1. But if the width is 1, I should give you the second context. If the width is equal to 1, what do you get? You will have your square, even though that doesn't look square to me. Okay, so you have your square. This looks more like it. It's going to be filled, to the full with the color that you have chosen. And it's going to be cool for you. That is the way you maneuver this pygame.draw.rect, construct, the first one. So width is very important. Same thing with the color. This rect is just showing you how you want to define the size. I want 40 pixel by 40 pixel. That shows a square. If you want a rectangle, you cannot do 40 by 40 because a rectangle is not supposed to have equal sides all through. So you need to be mindful of this definition here. But while we're still on square, I need to spend more time on square because it has similar construct to rectangle. So when we get to rectangle, you'll be able to figure out the slight variations there. So we have this. So why do we need this long one when this short one is there? It's very simple. I'll tell you why. If I have a square like this, and I am the artistic type, I want it to look more fanciful. So I need to put curves here. I need this to be a curved edge. I need this part to be curved as well. I need this part to be curved. I need this part to be curved so that it doesn't look like sharp edges all through. How do you go about doing that? There is no mathematical shape for that, but we can maneuver our square to give us that shape. And that is where all these other parameters come in. So if you put in, everything is unique to you, you understand it up to width, okay? If you put the width there and it is 1, what you see is that it will fill it with the color that you have chosen here. But if it is greater than 1, then you won't see the color here. Rather, you see the color on the edge or the lines around your shape. Okay, so be mindful of the way you decide what your width is going to be. Now, how curved will the edges be? That is what you see in border radius. It can be greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so if you put 2 pixel, there will be slight curvature on all the borders. If you put 5 pixel, it becomes more pronounced. So it's up to you. Okay, but there are times that you want to go really, really, top notch in your design. So I can come around and say, I have a square that is like this, but this part is bent. And this part is also bent. So this is the only part that is sharp. Sorry, not the only part. This part is sharp, but this part is bent. So this is sharp end. This is also sharp end, but this part is curved, and this part is curved because we want to have that shape. So you can picture it in your mind what that is going to look like. And then this one is a sharp edge. So how do you go about doing this? There is no shape for that in maths also, but we can maneuver it in Python. by saying, this is the top left corner. This is the top right corner. This is the bottom right corner. This is the bottom left corner. So individually, you can set the radius values for all of them. So for this guy, which is sharp, and this one, which is sharp, you leave them out. You don't set anything. But for this top left, which is curved, you can set a value here and say maybe 5. And you can set, this is bottom right. Here also, you can set a value of 5 if you want them to be the same. And if you don't want them to be the same, you can equally set your value there, and you will see the impact when your shape is displayed. This is a very powerful command. And if you want all the 4 edges to be curved, you can set top right, top left, bottom right, bottom left radius. That's what I put: top right radius, bottom left radius, bottom right radius, and top left radius. You can set whichever value suits your concept. Python is going to execute that for you. So without much time wasting, let's see how that works in the code environment. So I created a code snippet before now, and I created a square that is filled with orange color. Okay, this is my square, and I am saying this is going to start from position 200. On the x-axis, it will start from position 50 on the y-axis. So it will go from this corner, 200 this way, 50 it drops, and that is where it starts drawing. And when it is drawing, I want my square to be size 60 by 60 pixel. Okay, that's the first one there. I'll show you the way it's implemented. Then remember that I didn't put any radius here. It assumes a default radius, and that's why it fills the shape with orange. But if I want it to be an empty square, I'll put the same set of commands, but I am changing the width to 5, and I also made a slight change in the X position. And the reason why my X changed is because I don't want this second square to sit directly on top of the first one. So I have moved it further on this line. One is starting at 200. Let's say this is your position 200. The second one is starting at position 300, maybe somewhere here. Be mindful that I chose 300 because I know 300 is greater than 200 plus 60. So if I started the shape at 200 and I know the length is 60, then I know I cannot do any shape before 0.260. Otherwise, there will be an overlap. And that's why I chose 300. That is going to give us interesting shape. This one will be just a single shape with, orange, square. This one is going to be another orange square, but the background is white, and the border is going to be in color orange because the width is greater than 1. That's the game changer there. Then I added 2 fancy square. I moved them further, around on the screen. So when you see the numbers changing, it's because the position of the square is changing on the screen. And I equally changed the size of the square. I think in one case, I put 100 by 100. And I put border radius as 10. So it puts, 10 as the radius of the curves around all the borders. But there is an instance where I said, I don't want the border radius for all of them to be 10. I want to put the bottom right corner radius to be 10. I implemented this, and this is what came out for me. So the first line gave us this. This is where radius is, 1. Sorry, the width of the shape is 1. It fills the shape up with the color that I indicated. But if you do not want to have this kind of shape and you are looking forward to this one, then increase the width to be greater than 1. And then the color will be used to draw the border of that width for you. And this is the third example where I put radius of 10 and you see all the 4 corners are not corners again. They are now curved in some way. And then the fourth example is where I said, I want the bottom right corner to have a radius of 10. That's the only thing I changed. And I have this beautiful shape here. How do you go about doing that in a real world environment? You come back here and say, we are dealing with square. So this is my first square. I define a function. I call it add filled square. I filled it because I know I want it to have orange background. Okay. And the radius is just 1. So there is no need to put comma with radius 1. Now, but when I wanted to produce empty square, almost the same definition. The only thing I did was to shift this second square forward on the horizontal axis so that it doesn't clash with this first one, which is at position 200, and it extends by 60 pixels. So I moved beyond 0.260, and I'm starting another square there, which is at 0.300. So there is a space between my previous square and this new one. Okay, but the difference here now is even though they have the same dimension, different position, I am saying the border of this one, the lines around it should be 5 pixel in thickness. And because it is greater than 1, it ends up giving me the border in orange color and the background is now white rather than orange, which you will have in this first case. So let's implement that and show you exactly how it plays out. So I come back in here and I say, give me a filled square. Okay, if you run this, this is my filled square. And the line that is executing, we are going back to the code, is this one. This is line 36 in action. We are at point X is 200. This is where X is 200. And then Y is 50 at this point, this top corner of the square. Now the square extends 60 pixel, 60 pixel, and the background is orange. Now that's why you have that in there. If I go down the code again and I say, I do not want that shape, let me see the other one. In fact, let me keep the two of them side by side. Yeah, it's nice. Let's add the empty one and I run this code again. Now, this is the empty one. And we'll go back to the code to see which line is producing what. So line 36, 35 and 36 produce this first one. This second function, add empty square, produce this one. And it's empty because the background is plain. It's not filled with color. And the border is thick by 5 pixel because I defined the width here to be 5. If I didn't put anything there, it would have been like this first one. So sometimes you may want a shape like this. Sometimes you may need a shape like this. You know how to tweak things around now. Now, how do we go about playing with the edges? And that's where I came with fancy edges. Let's add fancy square. I'll run the command. It brings it out. Let me go to the part of the code that gives you that. Okay. This fancy square here is generated by def add fancy square. And the construct is, I said, okay, you know what? Go 150 on the x-axis. So it starts from 0, it moves this way. When it gets to 150, it stops. Then I said, go on the y-axis 250. Remember when you go down on y-axis, the value is increasing. So after moving 150 pixel to the right, it starts moving 250 pixel downward, then it got to this spot. So that is the point 150, 250. And I said, draw a square there, 100 pixel wide, 100 pixel tall. And that's what this 100 stands for. Then I said, give it a width of 5. And that's where this thickness of the border comes from. So it could have just been a bigger version of this square here, but I changed everything by adding border radius is 10. And that's why all these 4 corners are curved. But if I don't want all the 4 corners to be curved, what could I have done? There is another option that I have. Let me close this, and then I will activate one more function that I have already written. We'll see the code, and this is it here. So let's go back up. I said that is my another fancy square. Okay. So this def add another fancy square, which is this one. You see that of all the 4 corners that it has, 1 is curved, the other 3 are not. So how did I change the bottom right corner to be curved? This variable is there. Border for bottom right radius, I set it to 10. You see border for bottom left radius. You can change the radius of this one. You can see border top right, top left. You can change whichever one you want based on your desire, and you'll be able to generate shapes like this. It's very, very powerful, and you can start thinking of ideas that you can implement on the basis of this. That's your square for you. Now, without going to our code, I can just stay in here and say, I don't want a square anymore. We've talked so much about square. How about we talk about rectangles? Yes, rectangles are also very important. But before we talk about them, I've reset my screen back to being plain. I'm going back to my presentation. So this is how I generated this shape that you have here. But when you talk about rectangle, again, slide error. Yeah, keep the design. This should be rect. So when you do copy paste, you run into this sort of issue. Okay, so that's rect, not line. All right, so this syntax is pretty much the same as what you had with square. The only difference here is that where you are defining the dimension for your rectangle, you cannot say 60 by 60 as I have done here. This is a definition of a square. You need to make one side longer than the other, and that will give you a rectangle. So to produce these rectangles, I think I needed to play around with some codes. So I changed the dimensions, and the dimensions are just this. Just hold on a second. So I came in here and said, produce a rectangle for me. This is it. But I need it to be filled. It should start from position X is 75, Y is 60, and then draw a rectangle that is 120 pixel long and 80 pixel tall. That's the definition of this line 52. This is the starting position. Then we want the rectangle to be 120 pixel long, 80 pixel high or tall, as the case may be. So when you execute that, you will get your rectangle and it will be filled with orange color. Then I wanted another rectangle that will be the same dimension, but the position will be different. So I moved my second rectangle further on the horizontal axis, and that's why I have 200 here. But it should be aligned with the previous one in terms of vertical positioning. Then I change the width to 5. So that will give me the border thickness of 5 pixels. The rectangle is going to be empty. And then the color of the border will be whatever you have chosen in here. So your creativity also comes in here. Then I played with the borders and the radius of the borders. First, I changed the radius of all the four corners to 10. Then in this last example, I only changed for the bottom right radius. So let's look at all of this at a go and see how it pans out. So remove this, remove this, remove this, remove this. If I rerun my code, I'll have my rectangles here. So if we go up the ladder and say, where are our rectangles? They are here. So the first rectangle that we have here, this one that is filled, is handled by def add filled rectangle. It starts from 75, move 75 pixel on the x-axis, drop down 60 pixels. So that's the starting position. And I said it should go 120 pixel for the width, 80 pixel for the height. And that's why you have this shape here. For the second rectangle, which is defined as add empty rectangle, I am drawing it on our screen. That's why our screen is here. I have defined my color as orange. Then I'm saying move further down to where X is 200. So it goes down, 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 and X is 200 around here. And I said go down by 60 pixel on the Y axis, and it got to this corner. Then I said put a rectangle there that is 120 pixel wide, 80 pixel tall, but the width should be 5. And once the width goes beyond 1, the thickness comes with the color that you have chosen, and then the shape itself is not going to be filled again. And that's why you have this shape on this side. Now, for this third one that has all the four corners with curves, all I did was just to retain what I have in my empty rectangle, but I added something more, border radius. I just typed comma 10, and that's it. It put this parameter there on its own, and that's how you got this one. And then the fanciful object there, this one with sharp corners and one curved edge on the bottom right corner, this parameter was added to make that bottom right corner curved up to 10. You may have more than 10, you may have less than 10, but it has to be greater than 1 for people to notice it. And I moved it to another position on the screen. And that's how I produced these shapes. It is very important for you to know all of this because you will be dealing with shapes at the initial stage, and later you need to learn how to move them around, because tomorrow I'll show us how to put circle and semicircle and some sectors, which is like you're maneuvering circle. And that will be in the first part of tomorrow's class. After that, I'll move straight into moving your shapes around on the screen. Maybe we'll first talk about moving them around. That will energize you. And then later I'll come back to, expanding their shapes, rotating them on the screen. But we'll need to talk about movement tomorrow, inshallah. This is my story for tonight. Thanks a lot for being there. I have seen messages in the chat box. Let me see if they are related to me. Peace, I think I've installed. I'm so happy. I'm so happy for you too. That was a mistake. Don't worry, I got it. If anybody runs into any issue, I haven't installed it. Amira, don't worry, you'll be through with it tonight by God's grace. Ihsan and Ilham said, I'm confused with this calculation, maybe because I haven't done secondary school maths yet. Oh my goodness. Okay, can we make a Naruto game, please? I don't know that game. You tell us. Yeah, Abdullah says I'm still having challenges with installing my Pygame. Reach out to me after the class. I'll help you out. For those who are having issues with the shapes, let's go back. As in the calculations, let me go back. I'll get a plane console and then draw everything there. Give me a moment. I'll say, where is my screen? Give me a new screen. I need it to be plain. Yes, I need it to be plain. It's not completely plain. Something is interrupting. Yeah, never mind. We'll deal with it. All right. So for those who are struggling with the screen dimension and what looks like calculation, this is what I did. I'm getting my marker. I said to you that if you draw a line like this as your screen, let's say this is your screen. Anything on the horizontal axis here is usually called x-axis in mathematics. Anything on the vertical axis is called y. Even for those who have done mathematics in secondary school, what they were told is that this is x-axis and this is y-axis, and your values will be increasing as you go upward because there is a negative y-axis on this side, negative y, and there is a negative x-axis here. Here, x is positive. That's what they told them in secondary school maths. But if you are doing games programming, the logic is a little bit different. So I need you to pay attention to this. So let me clean the parts that I don't need because we are not drawing graph now. We are only dealing with your screen. Okay. So your screen is like this. Whether you have produced a landscape-driven screen of this nature or you've done a screen that is like this, it really doesn't matter. The principle is essentially the same. So this is what I'll do. I'll draw two shapes on the screen to make it easier for you. Go back. I don't want that. Yeah, I'll draw two shapes on the screen. And then we will run the illustration with the two shapes. I can have a game that looks like the shape of your phone. I can have a game that looks like the shape of your tablet device. Okay. So you need to picture this in your mind this way. Please watch this. I'm going to draw lines on the vertical side. There are many of such. And there'll be things like this. These are imaginary lines that you need to draw in your head if you have not done this before. So when you have these imaginary lines in your head, you need to now know where are you placing what. So first thing you need to know, if you move this way, remember I said this is 0, 0. That's that point there. This edge, yeah, that edge there is 0, 0, that corner. And that is where your x is 0, your y is 0. So this is x going, it's increasing this way. It is reducing this way. This is x. Your y is increasing this way. When you climb up, y is reducing. So if they ask you, what is the point here? How do you describe this point? You can only describe that point by counting how the distance between here and this point, excuse me, the distance from the top left corner to the top of that line where that spot is, that will be your x. And then you go down you measure the distance again, and that will be your y. So you must know how far from the origin you are on the x-axis as well as on the y-axis. So maybe if this screen is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe if this is 70, let's say this is 0 and this is 70, and then we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's say this is 60. What it means is that if you have moved this far here, it means you're at point 20 here, and then you're at point 10 here. So this point will be described as 20, 10. That will be the coordinate of that point. So if you are placing an object to start at that spot, you must know how wide that object is going to be. So if I put a rectangle there, for instance, that is my rectangle. The top left corner of my rectangle is at point 20, 10. That rectangle is now 10, 10, 10. So it is 30 pixel long, and the height is 20 pixel, because from here to here is 10. From this point to this point is another 10. So this is 10 here, this is 10 here. So the whole of this will be 20. This element is very key. If you don't understand it, you need to get a graph sheet and start playing around with it. But you need to play this video back again and, review this particular section of it. Everything starts from 0, 0 on the top left corner. The more you move to the right on the horizontal axis like this, the value increases towards the maximum. When you go down the screen, the value is also increasing towards the maximum. When you move your object back towards the top of the screen, the value of y is reducing, contrary to what you learned in your geometry in school. It's the reverse. And that's why many people may even struggle, those who are in secondary school. The only part you are not struggling with is your x-axis remains your x-axis. The value is always increasing when you go towards the right, and it reduces when you go towards the left. But the y-axis has flipped because origin has changed. In secondary school maths, this is where the origin is usually placed, 0, 0. So everybody will move from here, and we move outward towards y, towards x, and the origin is here. But in games, the origin is not there. Rather, it is at the top left corner here, and that changes the way everything is. Once you understand this, you'll be able to sketch. That's why I say you need to be able to sketch things on your paper and know where you are placing which object. Otherwise, you will struggle for the rest of the training if you do not understand the landscape very well. And that's why I took my time to give you this same plain screen to show you what the layout looks like. So for those who are struggling, please watch this again. I don't want to extend the video unnecessarily, but I think you will find this, very, very useful. Thanks a lot for your time. I yield the floor back to our coordinator to wrap up for us. Our coordinator, are you there, sir?
Yeah, Uncle, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm there. I heard you. But I'm driving, so I have to unmute first.
Okay.
That takes a little delay. So I heard you. I've been with the class. I must say that it has been an exciting class, and I think that we need to watch these videos. If it's posted early enough before tomorrow, I want to ask everybody to please, that will be my first question tomorrow. I want to know who would have watched the videos tomorrow. Very important, because you have learned a lot of things that if you don't go back to watch it and go over it again, you're definitely not going to catch up with tomorrow's class. Definitely not going to catch up with tomorrow's class. So it is very, very important that everybody goes to the video and watch them, or well, particularly for today, and watch it before coming to tomorrow's class. Okay. I'm also thinking, and I'm going to discuss that with Uncle, that for those that are in Lagos, maybe we can have a small party to end this class.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
possible. I was thinking of that as well. If we have them in Lagos, we can meet somewhere nice.
Meet
And
somewhere.
those that are outside Lagos, if they are not too far away, we
Yeah,
can,
maybe like
Ibadan, we can get them on the train to come over. It's only people who are outside Nigeria that we will need to connect to via Zoom.
So I want to ask, when are you guys resuming school? When is school resuming?
Next week, Monday.
Next week, Monday, September 9.
September 9. So we only have this weekend if there's going to be any such thing. Okay. Like we'll come back to you tomorrow on that so that we can catch some fun. It's supposed to be a summer school.
Yeah.
The summer school is supposed to be fun. So we'll come back to you on that next if this weekend is going to be a party. Okay, so like I said again, go through the video, and that will be my question. I'm going to ask any, and then come early as 7:20 tomorrow. I'm also going to put it in my schedule. That's going to stop that, so that in 10 minutes we'll ask ourselves what have we learned. Particularly when you watch the video, how has it improved your knowledge and understanding you have now? How has watching the video improved it? So that's going to be the question tomorrow. We will all explain. Mrs. Samuel and the sister would tell us, everybody will tell us their own experience, and then we'll move on from there. So, Uncle, thank you. Kids, thank you. We'll catch up again tomorrow. So here I anchor for today. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Good night.
You can reach out to me if you need my support. Yeah.
Are we making that again?